Well, the subject of the hangout, the name of it. If these people are in denial of so many things, and if they are preaching so many falsehoods, how can you trust this person when they tell you something in a science class? How is it that the student is able to discern without a lot of study on their own to know what they're being taught in the classroom, whether it's true or not?
Mm-hmm.
How are they going to mix? If they're told in biology that this operates, that this functions this way, okay, maybe he's telling me how this operates, the ATP gun, for example. And then he says, and this came into being because, this system is physically related to that, and obviously, and we can see the pattern here, therefore it must have evolved in this manner. The student says, oh, okay, well, you've got it figured out then, don't you? But I guess I have to trust everything he says. He knows about what the ATP gun does. He must know how it evolved.
Mm-hmm.
He's a scientist, right? These guys, they've worked it all out in their labs, right? They've done the math on the chalkboard. They've done the chemical analysis and the 3D modeling in a computer. They figured it out, right? That's the garbage that they get fed their heads.
The other day, I was assisting and supporting those who were arguing evolution, and I came in and said, we've only been observing human history, literature, and communication for anywhere between 10 to 20,000 years. I know I believe in 6,000, but I'm just giving them that whatever. And so I told him, you want me to believe that since the last change that we observe, that we know in the fossil record of any human link was 200,000 years ago, because that's when the last Homo sapiens sapien blah 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 was, and we killed Homo erectus and all that. We obliterated them, whatever. You want me to believe that we know this? Meanwhile, we've only been observing our own known history for 10 to 20,000 years. You want me to? And I'm not believing in a fairy tale. And he goes, well, that's a conspiracy. Blah blah blah. I guess we're all wrong. That's science is. I'm like, nobody's saying science is fictitious and everything. It's just a conclusion that we come to, and we force the young to believe.
The atheist camp, the evolutionists, make this false argument. It's really quite silly. Well, you don't believe in evolution? Well, then don't go to a doctor. As if immunities and whatnot is any kind of argument for evolution theory, when it's actually the opposite. It's evidence of intelligent design, that an organism can build in something in its immune system to combat something on the fly like that. That's ingenious. And immunities don't change the anatomy of the organism in the slightest bit, don't change its structural design at all. No matter how many immunities an organism gets, that won't move it one tiniest bit towards becoming something other than the genus that it is. Not one bit.
Amen.
And that is not an argument for evolution. It is, in fact, an incredible evidence of intelligent design. It's going to start from what somebody wants to believe, whether they're willing to believe that there's a creator or whether they're not. That's how you're going to interpret the evidence.
Well,
and until you come to a place where you're not opposed to the idea of a creator, you're going to see all the evidence as, well, just because we don't have the evidence of that. Well, so what? They disproved that. I believe lock, stock, and barrel in evolution theory until about 9 years ago. I truly did. I sat up on the couch one day. I was watching TV, and a preacher got on TV, a prominent one, and he had a Bible in his hand, and he said, evolutionists talk about their theory as though it's scientific fact. You know what I did? I sat up on the edge of my couch and talked to that man on TV and said, that's because it is, you moron. I believed in evolution. All those fantastical programs on Nature and on Smithsonian TV and National Geographic where they show all their ideas about how things evolved in the millions of years ago. And I was like, wow, that's so awesome. They've discovered all this stuff. This is fascinating. Just imagining millions of years ago in my head was so fascinating. It's like, wow, that's so cool. Right? I believed it. Then somebody introduced me to the controversy over evolution in the scientific community and the arguments against it. And I said, could this really be true? And then they said also to me, hey, guess what? The Bible says God made it. Yes, I did believe in God, but they said God made it. Go investigate. You find evidence for it. And you find that evolution is false. So what did I do? I dug my head into it. I read everything I could get my hands on. I went to work on a half a night's sleep for 5 months straight. I studied the subject, and I came to the conclusion that life was created not because I believed in God, not because the Bible said so, but because of the hardcore scientific evidence was absolutely and completely, totally one-sided in favor of creation. And there is not a shred of evidence that life could have or did arise by now. The truth is, I've debated with, I don't know how many atheists, how many evolutionists. It's got to be a couple hundred now, and I've been doing it for almost 9 years. You know what? That's exactly the truth. That's exactly what I've discovered is the truth. That people start with what they believe, and the evidence goes their way, and that's how they see it, and they won't see it any other way. If the evidence is studied honestly and unbiasedly, the evidence itself will speak, because it is true, after all, that evolution either is true and creation false, or creation is true and evolution is false. One of the two is the truth, right? It can only be that life was created or it evolved. It either has a supernatural origin or a natural one.
What exactly is abiogenesis? I think I know the basics, but
it's the idea that purely naturalistic causes organized matter to form a cell, which then began to multiply and become increasingly complex. They don't find the transitional sequences. Instead, they just find genera, family, and species without evidence that they came into being by precursors. See, the thing is, paleontologists write books not for the public, but for each other. They want each other to peer review it, and they want to look smart in front of their peers. And so they read each other's books because they know their peers are going to be reading them. They're honest. They say, well, we don't see the transitional sequence of anything that leading up to anything that lives on this planet. Because if they said, oh, yeah, we got the sequence for the coelacanth, we got the sequence for the chimpanzee, we got the sequence for the camel, they'd look like an idiot. The other paleontologists say, who's this nutbag? We don't have any such fossils like that.
Yeah.
They have to be honest. We don't have it. Because otherwise they're going to look like a buffoon. They're not going to just make up crap, right? So they're being completely honest when they say the evidence of the transitional forms just don't seem to be there. Not there. If
So
evolution were true, there should be an outrageous abundance of those kind of fossils. It's double speak. Out of one side of the mouth comes evolution is true, fossils, and the other side of the mouth says, well, we don't have the transitional forms we expected. The evolution predicts would be true. We don't have them, and then they come up with an excuse. Oh, I know, punctuated equilibrium. The creatures evolved slowly, didn't hardly change a bit, and then all of a sudden, boom, there was a burst in diversity. They begat a completely different kind of life, and then, evolution kind of slowed down a little bit because the Earth got real cold. And then it warms up, and boom, look, these varieties produced all kinds of new species. That's what they want to believe. Let me give you an example. Another creature called Ramapithecus, Ardipithecus sediba. I think it was sediba that they found. They found 200, I think it was roughly 200 fragments of bone, very few, a couple of nearly complete bones, mostly fragments of bones. And, and they put them together and formed this creature they called sediba and put it on the cover of National Geographic magazine that proclaimed it to be our ancestor. Do you know how big an area they found all those 200 fragments of bone? 1.1 square kilometers. They find bits of bone over an area as big as a square mile almost, and then put them together and say this was the creature. They don't know if they've got human bones mixed with chimpanzee bones, mixed with orangutan bone. They don't know that. They don't know that creature is probably mosaic. They've probably got pieces of bone from different species of creature in there, and they're claiming all of them are from the same species. I don't believe that by studying the bones, they're going to be able to tell, was this from an extinct gorilla and this one from chimpanzee, and then put them together in the same as part of the same species? I doubt it. If they're searching for bone bits over an area as big as a square mile, no, I don't think so. They probably got bone fragments from at least 2, maybe 3 or 5. In fact, some scientists argue that those bone fragments could have come from more than 17 different individuals. So that's science to these people. You know, as long as they can create something to present an image to the world and proclaim evolution true, they can mock the creatures. Aha, look, we got the physical evidence. What do you got? You found 200 fragments of bones from creatures that are probably not even the same species, put them together to form a creature, and then proclaimed it to be an ancestor of man when you don't know jack about it. It's called pseudoscience.